guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Misty, and of course the channel's name is Speculative Magpie. And we are here to do another book review. And the book review we're going to do right now is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This is the group book for the Evil-A-thon Readathon, hosted by Kasha from Kasha's Book Cemetery. So you know how this works. Let's read the synopsis and then we'll talk about it. So, in every book we read, no one ever thought anything bad was happening until it was too late. Patricia Campbell's life has never felt smaller. Her husband is a workaholic. Her teenage kids have their own lives. Her senile mother-in-law needs constant care. And she's always a step behind on her endless to-do list. The only thing keeping her sane is her book club, a close-knit group of Charleston women united by their love of true crime. At these meetings, they're likely to talk about the Manson family as they are about their own families. One evening after book club, Patricia is viciously attacked by an elderly neighbor, bringing the neighbor's handsome nephew, James Harris, into her life. James is a well-traveled and well-read, and he makes Patricia feel things that she hasn't felt in years. But when children on the other side of town go missing, their deaths written off by local police, Patricia has a reason to believe James Harris is more of a Bundy than a Brad Pitt. The real problem? James is a monster of a different kind, and Patricia has already invited him in. Little by little, James will insinuate himself into Patricia's life and try to take everything she took for granted, including the book club. But she won't surrender without a fight in this blood-soaked tale of neighborly kindness gone wrong. All right. So I'm just going to come out and say it straight off the bat. Okay? I do not believe that Grady Hendrix is a horror writer. I think Grady Hendrix is a 1980s housewife. Because, holy shit, did he nail that one. It's like I was reading this and I was like, that's my mom. I mean, Patricia Campbell is pretty much my mom. My dad wasn't a workaholic asshole like her husband Carter is. I also see a lot of one of the other book club members here in my mom, Grace. And my dad wasn't abusive like Grace's husband was. But the more I read this book, the more I was like, wow. He really, really nailed the whole isolation and the kind of the dismissive attitude that a lot of people had for, anything that would disrupt your everyday life as far. And I think that's the real horror in this book. 'Cause you really felt Patricia's kind of helplessness because she did everything right when she suspected, James of doing something wrong. She went to the cops. And the cops were like, "Are you sure? Are you positive that's what you saw?" And then she went to Carter, her husband, and he was like, I really don't think you saw what you thought you saw. And then she went to her friends, and they were all like, that just really doesn't make sense. I mean, I don't understand why you would say that and disrupt, what we have going on here. Why would you say that? And back then, it wasn't quite so much, you just didn't do anything to disturb the status quo, and Grady really nailed it here. And yeah, that was pretty horrifying. Not to mention, you throw in some monsters, some incredibly disturbing and horrifying scenes, and this book was just amazing. It really was. All the characters. I grew up in this household. I grew up in the South. I'm from Texas. Like I said, my mom was these women. She had a small core group of friends. They didn't really read books together, but they held the Southern dinner parties where all the family got together, and they would sit around, and the men would be in one room, the ladies would be in the other room. Sometimes they'd converge, but not often. Um, and then you toss in a possible vampire, and just everything else, and just the complete disconnect from reality that Patricia was going through and what she felt. It's like there were several times in here where I was just so angry for her. And I think that's what the most horrifying thing, like I've said in this book, is I've seen situations like that where you've looked and you said help me, and they're like, are you sure that's the direction that you want to go? And the minute somebody asks you, are you sure, you're like, no, I'm not sure, never mind, maybe that wasn't quite what I intended, I'm sorry. And that's pretty much the way Patricia handled it. Now, in the end, I mean, there's no spoilers. There's, they come together and they go after, this. But it's only after a lot of stuff happened that it started to affect the other people personally, that they started to take notice. Which I'm sad to say is, basically what happens when you're in the South in the 80s and the early 90s, like this book was done. I mean, it's like, it's happening way over there. So, but as long as it doesn't affect us, it's really not our problem. Which was, yeah. And the 80s and the 90s really were pretty isolated for a lot of people. I mean, when you're in those small towns, even those suburb small towns where everybody knows your business, everybody might know your business, but not everybody's going to, help you if something's going wrong. And basically it's these women, these four women, well, five, sorry, these five women that get together and they do their best to stop something bad that's going around. And it was so worth it. This is a 5 out of 5 read. The horror aspects, while not bloody, were disturbing. It mentions that once in the synopsis where Patricia was attacked by her elderly neighbor. Oh my gosh, that scene was just jarring. You were like, wow, is that really happening? Which, this is my first Grady Hendrix book. I have like two more now to read from him, that I'm definitely looking forward to getting to. So I would strongly suggest, people picking up this book to read. It was so good. The book itself is like, over 400 pages, but I read it in 3 days, and I read it in 3 days at work. So it's an easy read. It's not difficult, but it just keeps you moving along. And the fun thing in here is each section of the book is named after books that they read in the book club, and it kind of pertains to what's going on, which I thought was really good. So Grady Hendrix is definitely a fantastic author. I'm looking forward to reading more of his books. but I still think he might be an 80s housewife in disguise. He's just nailed it, dude. It's pretty spot on for a Southern housewife from the 80s and the 90s. So that's my review for this book. Thank you for coming, and I hope to see you again where we can talk some more about some books and things. Okay, guys? I'll talk to you later. Bye.